Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Developing Soft Skills in Mariners. Thank you all for joining us from wherever you are in the world today. I am Marquita Celestin, Account and Business Development Manager here at the Nautical Institute in the Information and Publications Department, your host for today's webinar. We are truly delighted that you are here with us and you have been able to log on successfully, I hope. We are delighted to be joined by a very esteemed panel of speakers today, and I'm sure, like me, you can't wait to hear from them. Therefore, I won't keep you waiting for too much longer. While many of you in attendance are already members of the Nautical Institute and our industry partners, we do recognize that some of you joining today are here with us for the first time. So in this regard, I'd like to give you a short overview of who we are and what we do. The Nautical Institute is an international body with members across the globe. We aim to promote professionalism, best practice, and safety throughout the maritime industry and represent our members' interests. We do this in several ways, for example, via webinars like this one today, which you're a part of. And of course, we also do this through representation at international maritime bodies such as the IMO. We believe that sharing information and best practice leads to improved decision making and promotes high standards. In today's webinar, our panel of experts will share their thoughts, insights, experiences with you on soft skills and why it is as worthy and an essential skill as any other technical skill in our professional lives. So we hope that today's webinar will be interactive. It's meant to be interactive. So please, we encourage you to participate by sharing your comments and questions. You can do this by clicking on the chat button as demonstrated on the screen. It's at the top right-hand corner of your screen. So please feel free to submit your questions and comments throughout the webinar. There's no need for you to wait for the question and answer segment. You can do this at any time. We've also uploaded some very useful handouts, so you can download this throughout the webinar as well. Please do so because at one of those handouts, we have a very special discount code for all attending this webinar. At the end of the webinar, there will be a pop-up survey. It's a very short one, maybe take you about 1 to 2 minutes. However, the information that we will gain from that will really be very vital to helping us to improve what we do and what information you'd like to see from us in the future. You'll also receive a certificate of attendance in a few days, so please do look out for this in our thank you email that you should get probably in a day or two. We'll also send you the link to today's webinar in case you missed something and you'd like to look at the webinar again, or perhaps you have colleagues who would have wanted to be here today live with us but we're not able to attend. Feel free to share the link with them. It will also be available via our YouTube channel as well as our members portal on our website. Therefore, without further ado, let's get started. We have over 370 persons registered for today's webinar. Welcome again, everyone. We look forward to your questions and comments. However, may we ask you to kindly keep them short and succinct so that we can get through as many as possible. It is now my pleasure to hand you over to my colleague, our moderator for today's webinar and head of our Information and Publications Department here at the Nautical Institute, Stephen Goslin. Stephen, over to you.
Marquita, thank you very much indeed, and welcome speakers, and welcome to you all from wherever you are joining us today. Now, some of you will know that it wasn't until 2010 that STCW gave birth to leadership and teamwork training for seagoing officers for the very first time. And I think it's fair to say that the industry's collective knowledge and understanding and regard for the human element has grown considerably over subsequent years to shape present day policy, training and practice. However, it is now 2025, and many would still argue that we're not doing enough to prepare our leaders of the future, that we're not doing enough to keep our seafarers at sea working at their best, enabling them to be fulfilled and happy at work. That soft skills simply aren't high enough on the training agenda if we're going to drive up performance, safety and profit. So what exactly are soft skills and why do they really matter? Well, that's what we're here today to address. And to answer those questions and others, I have a stellar lineup of speakers who will offer us their own insights and perspectives. So I'd like to ask each of our speakers to now introduce themselves, your names and affiliations, please, starting with yourself, please, Carol.
Hello, everybody. I'm Carol Davis. I'm Professor Emeritus at Wasatch Maritime School, Solent University, and lead consultant, project lead for Carol L. Davis Associates.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Watkins, and I work for Chirp Maritime, the confidential human factors incident reporting program. And I am a former mariner, been at sea for 28 years and 42 years in the industry.
Yeah, and my name is Eric Green. I'm a partner and managing director of Green Jacobson. Very short, here in Green Jacobson, we have always been focusing on human performance, safety performance, anything in relation to soft skills and leadership. And this is what I've been doing for the last 25 years. So absolutely delighted to sit in here and being part of this panel.
Thank you, Eric.
I'm Jo Docherty and I work in the impact team at the Seafarers Charity. Last year, we awarded £2.5 million in grants to charities and organisations who to support people who work or have worked at sea. Our focus is on improving financial resilience and reducing need, improving safety, health and well-being, and advocating for social justice for seafarers. Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, speakers, and thank you for being available today. I'd like to start by asking Carol to set the scene by introducing the topic and providing some definition to tee up the discussion that will follow our speaker presentations today. Carol, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for that introduction. Most of all, a heartfelt thanks to all of you for being here to join me and the other panelists in committing to bringing about transformational change in working practices, working lives, and organisational culture. In the short time available to me, I want us to cover 3 areas. Firstly, what do we mean by soft skills? Secondly, some common misconceptions about soft skills. And finally, my particular area of interest, which is given that soft skills training, whether that be mandatory or commissioned by companies, has become such a ubiquitous feature of the maritime industry. I want us to really think about approaches which ensure teaching and learning approaches engage participants in a way that improves performance at work and well-being, including making participants more effective leaders and followers. Let us not waste our money and effort. So what do we mean by soft skills? Typically, we can present them broadly as communication, problem solving, adaptability, and teamwork. So very general. However, within those broad categories, there are subsets of soft skills. And actually, sometimes the demarcation lines between hard skills and soft skills are permeable. So with communication, we have verbal and oral communication, giving and receiving feedback, listening skills. Problem solving, we have decision making, critical thinking, and analysis of consequences and self-evaluation. With adaptability, being open to new way of thinking, professionalism, empathy, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, for example, of own bias and entrenched attitudes, commitment to lifelong learning, and then with teamwork, collaboration, interactions, time management, inclusive approaches, holding to account while looking after each other around well-being, psychological safety, and being an effective ally. Not meant to be exhaustive, but just wanting to set the scene, as Stephen said. In my view, and based on many years of working in fast-paced and complex organisations, including the health service, higher education, and maritime, with a commercial bottom line, hard and soft skills are complementary and both essential. So I think a compelling argument for a less binary view, because they are permeable. At this point, I need to acknowledge that soft skills has become a contested term. Recently, after a great deal of thought, I have made a conscious effort to retain the term, and very happy to say more about this and in the Q&A. Before we move on to common myths surrounding soft skills, I want to press pause and ask you, the audience, the following questions. 1, to what extent do you and the people around you use soft skills? 2, how do you know you are using them? 3, what impact do you think they have on efficiency, effectiveness, and the quality of life in your place of work? 4, could you do more? Facts can often become clouded by misconceptions that result in unwanted frictions and misunderstandings. I'm going to share 8 of the more common ones around soft skills. 1, soft skills can be described as non-technical skills. Defining a term as something it is not suggests a hierarchy that equates one set of skills as being less than another. Let's not do that. 2, soft skills are vague, ambiguous, and abstract. Certainly, they can be complex and nuanced to describe, yet not impossible to define and facilitate the development of them in others. 3, soft skills cannot be easily quantified or measured. They can. Please see chapter 5 of my new book. 4, maritime is a global industry, and surely soft skills are culturally determined. Now, recognising diversity is important. However, we should not be constrained by stereotypes and generalities. Instead, we need to establish common ground and shared values that align with effective soft skills. Let's start having the conversation, however uncomfortable. Myth number 8, soft skills only develop with experience and cannot be taught. The experience and length of time in a job is no guarantee individuals have effective soft skills, which require insight and application. Soft skills can be taught effectively and efficiently. 6, it's sometimes said there's a tension between treating people well and holding them to high standards at work. These concepts are neither incompatible nor mutually exclusive, and I know the other panelists will eloquently talk to this point. 7, there is no evidence linking soft skills to improved performance or profit. Again, hear what the other panelists have to say. There is credible research and data supporting the positive impact of effective soft skills training on commercial gain, as well as safety, retention, and employability. Final myth, investing in soft skills training will not change attitudes and behaviour. Training is always about changing knowledge, skills, and attitudes. You need to build on what is taught during the sessions and integrate it into work-based application, learning, and evaluation. As said, I was seconded to the MCA 2021 to 2022 as Assistant Director for Modernising Maritime Education. I led a review of Human Element and Management, HELM courses, and it quickly became apparent to me that there was a need to focus on a practical and encouraging resource aimed at those teaching soft skills. This would recognise that learning and teaching carries its own body of knowledge and evidence base. It's not simply enough to list content and hope for the best. Regulators and other stakeholders and those who influence and approve soft skills courses, please take note, as I don't feel you always understand this correlation. That's why I've devoted much of my professional life to mentoring and supporting those who teach and facilitate. We need to reach a common understanding of what a good soft skills course looks like, and this is inextricably linked to the approach taken by the facilitator. What matters is that facilitators provide authentic and relevant interactive learning experiences. 4 dimensions: navigating content, managing group dynamics, the learning process, being all over that, and being certain that learning outcomes have been met. It's all about the active learning, participants engaging in their learning through activities, exercises, case studies, simulation, role plays, and discussion. Important that these are relevant and convincing. They can take many shapes and forms. However, crucial to this is the meticulous planning of these approaches and methods, sufficient time given to them, especially regarding the debriefing. You have such an opportunity in soft skills training to mirror real life on board and at shore, including managing group conflict. Embed peer learning, normalization of learning from others, the relational aspects, working collaboratively, and the action planning, absolutely critical. Build an assessment of soft skills, which can take the form of behavioral markers using existing tools and frameworks, self-assessment, self-report, observation by facilitator, peer feedback for observation. When people are back at work, make sure that these are integrated into self-assessment and hiring. It's absolutely inevitable that sensitive subjects will come up during a soft skills course. For example, bullying, harassment, racism, homophobia, toxic workplaces, the subject of my next book, abuse, mental health, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Discussion is important, as these are scenarios which are frequently replicated in the workplace, a way to encourage deep reflection and awareness, along with practical strategies you can apply in the workplace. Absolutely essential for facilitators to evaluate their own practice, drawing on self-evaluation techniques, as well as provide participants with opportunities to provide constructive feedback, written and verbal. There are many methods of gathering feedback and critical to act on it if it will enhance the learning experience. You can do this in course and after course for those who come after. Just quick word about online courses. Many soft skill courses are face-to-face, but many are also online for inclusivity. You can get good results of these with care, and again, I reference this in the book. In summary, you need to create a learning environment that respects individuals, encourages them to take responsibility, establishes psychological safety, supports a growth mindset, and praises their efforts. Create an environment of learning where it's safe to engage, ask questions, make mistakes, and share opinions. This makes it easier to increase the transfer of knowledge, skills, and attitude from classroom, whether that classroom be face-to-face or online, to ship or office. Yet even the most immersive and engaging courses are by themselves insufficient. Organisations and companies need to ensure that maritime professionals, through mentoring and onboard coaching, gain the necessary soft skills, those teachable moments and learning conversations, not necessarily time consuming, but so powerful and absolutely transformation, need to become an integral part of our working day. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much there, Carol, for setting the scene for us and kicking off the discussions today. Without wasting any more time, I'd like to move straight over to you, Dave, for your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carol, for that very informative presentation. Could I have my slides, please? Marquita? Yeah. Katrina, that's it. Thank you. What I would like to do during this 10 minutes is to look at the publication from a CHIRP perspective, in particular considering the topics of leadership, communication, critical thinking, and learning and training. Next slide, please. Right, there we are. The role of leadership, communication, and critical thinking in maritime safety. I'm a strong believer that strong leadership is critical within any organisation. It begins at the top, where the leaders are that set the tone for prioritising training, fostering trust, and maintaining open communications across all levels. As highlighted in the book, I've got my book here, there is a profound connection between leadership and kind leadership. Central to kind leadership is the practice of empathy and respect towards others. Kind leadership emphasizes the development of soft skills, creates an environment conducive to measurable performance, and enhances workforce engagement. The Environment fosters better communication and collaboration within the ship and across the company. And CHIRP reports can identify areas where effective leadership practices are very good and sadly where they're not so good. When we look at open communications from our CHIRP Maritime reports, first of all, I would say communication is pivotal in soft skills leadership training. But the overarching issue that we often find identified in the CHIRP reports is a lack of proactive, structured and situationally aware communication. And that's right across the teams and across the operations that are taking place. This manifests itself in insufficient planning, weak feedback loops, and unclear accountability, especially during dynamic and high-risk operations. Critical thinking after each operation, and this is something that is one of my sort of pet things to try and do, and I try to do that in my working life. After each operation, critical reflection is essential. It's not easy to do and it's not easy to organize. Sometimes we call this WWW, what went well, or EBI, even better if. This practice captures insights while memories are still fresh. It encourages crew members, including those who may be hesitant to speak up, to contribute valuable perspectives. Soft skills training plays a crucial role in empowering individuals, building trust and enhancing teamwork through effective communication. CHIRP advocates for a no-blame culture where lessons learned are shared openly, fostering a culture of continuous improvement without fear of judgment. Sadly, this approach doesn't always happen, and especially from the reports that we receive. However, if it's done properly, this approach ensures that knowledge gained from incidents is used to benefit others and improve overall operational practices. Next slide, please. Just staying with the theme for critical thinking, we have mechanisms in place to create legislation to prevent, improve, but I find it very difficult to find anything where we have a regulatory requirement to learn. From John Dewey, he's an educationalist, American educationalist and philosopher. In 1933 came up with this statement, which he did a lot of work on. We don't learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. And with that in mind, genuine learning arises from actively contemplating and reflecting on our experiences. Reflection enables us to analyze what happened, grasp the lessons learned, and use those insights in future situations. In learning context, reflecting on and analyzing experiences with the crew through a more in-depth approach, using the soft skill techniques that are found in this book to obtain valuable feedback, including the WWW and the EBI, even better ifs. This will generate actionable points and outcomes that can be shared fleet-wide, and of course with CHIRP, because we always want to report on good learning. It underscores the importance of mindfulness and critical thinking in the learning process. A well-conducted brief, as I mentioned before, is an invaluable tool for all crew members. However, it must be carefully planned and timed to maximize the outcome. The Soft Skills Handbook details how this can be achieved. Next slide, please. So why soft skills matter at sea? Well, put simply, I suppose, soft skills are vital at sea because when a vessel is in peril, the crew's trust in the team on board make the difference between a successful outcome and catastrophe. According to industry statistics, 80% of maritime accidents arise from human errors, or human factors, more technically correct, I suppose, not technical failures. This is why soft skills like leadership, communication, and teamwork are equally as important as technical skills. Training in listening, conflict resolution, and situational awareness is imperative. When internal or external training is adequately resourced, it can yield a return on your investment in training. Crews who recognize a company's efforts to enhance onboard safety through better leaders, open communication, and robust safety culture will be more inclined to remain with the company. This results in improved recruitment and retention and a more stable workforce, a stronger safety culture, and a unified company philosophy, and a more satisfied workplace. It also leads to fewer personal injuries and enhanced loss prevention. However, I would say that strong leadership is required to uphold the commitment to soft skills training. Next slide, please. Thank you, Katrina. This slide here, it just to put some sort of context to all the words. These are the this slide is an overview of safety data from the last 2 years of CHIRP reports, 23 and 24, and they are the top findings for each of the categories. CHIRP uses the SHIELD taxonomy, which is the Safety Human Incident Error Learning Database, and we reference these to the deadly dozen. And of the 4 categories, acts, preconditions, operational leadership, and organization, you can see that communication is in the top 5 there. In preconditions, no cross-check or speaking up, alerting is in the top 3. Operational leadership, inadequate leadership or supervision, which equates to teamwork, is in the top 2 there. And for at organizational level, and I think this is very important to say, safety culture. We find that these are the top areas where improvements are required. Safety culture and safety management, that's proactive safety management. These findings can all be improved upon by training provided in the Soft Skills Handbook. Next slide, please. And you've seen this Hudson Cultural Safety Ladder before. I'm not going to discuss it. All I'm going to say that I think it would not be wrong of me to state that a little bit of effort in applying soft skills from this handbook would see an improvement up that ladder for the company. So next slide, please. My final slide. So in summary, developing soft skills in mariners isn't just a nice to have. It's a critical component of maritime safety and efficiency. Strong leadership shapes safety culture. Open communications prevent errors. And fostering critical thinking ensures that crews learn and grow after every operation. And as mariners, I feel it's appropriate that we should consider committing to investing in leadership and communication training, even starting on a pilot course following this webinar. Promoting open, transparent communications at all levels, and incorporating critical thinking and reflection into everyday operation. This quote here is a takeaway from the book, but I think it's very, very appropriate. Effective leaders don't just navigate ships, they inspire crews to navigate challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Some really powerful statements there, which I'm sure we'll come back to in the discussion. But we must march on. Time is ticking. So please may I invite Eric to come to the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Stephen. And thank you both, Carol and Dave, for your insights. Really, really strong insights there. Really being inspired also by all your thoughts here. Could you please share my slides? Yeah, move on from that one. That's me. No need to dwell on that. Yeah, I can only listen. I can only echo what Dave and Carol have already said. Application of good soft skills will help drive human performance, but also help ensure crew well-being. It's not just a claim; it's documented. So if you want to achieve both, they go hand in hand. You need to focus on good soft skills and the development of these. I think what I'm going to be trying to do is to show a case. I'm trying to go a little bit deeper, some of the work we've done in Green Jacobson, where we show how you could say the application of soft skills to create learning, to create continuous reflections, but also to facilitate learning, thereby also facilitating a performance-focused culture. So please move on. The slide. Yeah, as you've already said, and I'm really only repeating it, soft skills really help safeguard better human performance. It helps resolve conflicts, ensures motivated crew, achieves high psychological safety. And that's one of the areas I would like to start addressing more specifically in my presentation, because if we just dwell on that for a moment, having high psychological safety is also to say you have an open and trusting work culture. And if you want to have high safety performance, if you want people to perform at their best, you need to have an environment on board where people feel that they can speak up, they can speak their opinion, they feel free to raise their concerns without being penalized or without fear of any repercussions afterwards. So I think we need to keep on understanding this. And if you can just move on to the next slide, and I think both Dave and Carol have already said that, we need to start looking at soft skills as ensuring the partnership between having high business performance, but also having high crew well-being. There's no contradiction between these. If you could move on to the next slide. Yeah, so a company has business objectives. And I think you said it, Carol. Sometimes we have this discussion, well, just get on with work. The most important thing is that the company is running. We need to meet the business objectives because we have profits. We need to have high performance. We need to innovate, etc., etc. Crew well-being, well, yeah, try and figure it out as you go along. It's business. But the thing is that it should be seen as a partnership. There's no contradiction. If you have employees who feel well with high psychological safety, you will also have a higher likelihood of achieving your business objectives. And you could, if you could just move on to the next slide, I can be more specific about this. Because if we look at it from a different perspective, you can say, well, a company has a mission, vessel performance objectives and KPIs. And you have different, you could say, elements influencing the end result. You have technical performance, you have crew performance, you have safety performance, operational performance, etc., etc. And all these are influenced by humans. So all these factors, all these performance areas are influenced by humans. At the end of the day, humans direct and drive the performance in these areas. And if we look at it from a financial perspective, well, basically you can say the OPEX, the operational expenses every day, 50 to 60% of the cost relates to crew cost. And if you are an owner, you can ask yourself, what do I get for that spend? Well, that's where we say as soft skill experts, well, you get more out of your spend if you actually understand how to create the best environment on board your vessels that can better ensure that people click and tick. So if you invest in your soft skills and your leadership, the probability of getting more out of your spend, if we're to look at it from financial terms, increases. In other words, your performance will go up. So we need to understand, how do we create the environment where we get the best out of our crew for their well-being, but also for the business. If you could move on to the next slide. Now, what I would like to talk about is a specific case we have been involved in. And this case was very much about creating a learning environment, a reflective environment, where we could start improving the safety performance of a very specific company. This company that I'm showing you is a tanker company, 80 vessels, tankers, of course, operating worldwide. And in 2017, they came to us and said, listen, we want to have a higher safety performance. Help us try and come up with a solution where we can document and show that we actually have developed a better safety performance. Right from the beginning, we said, well, we need to understand that those who drive and direct safety performance are those on board. The ones doing their work, how can we actually create an environment? How can we create a movement where we try to get those on board to get more involved in the safety performance reflections, learnings, and improvements as they go along? And what we did was we said, okay, let's start directing the crew's attention towards the areas that influence performance. Now, if you could just click one more time. Yeah. So what we did was we said, okay, let's get the crew reflecting upon the different influencing factors. In other words, let's get the crew engaged in discussing the factors that potentially can have a negative or positive influence on the result of their safety performance. So in other words, we started asking questions on board the vessels to get them to reflect upon different things we know as experts has an influence on the end result. However, if you want the crew to start reflecting upon these, willing to talk about these things, you need to have leaders who understand how to create an environment or create some circumstances where the crew say, I am not afraid of speaking up. I will tell you what I know, and thereby together we can actually start moving our performance to a higher level because I start sharing my thoughts, my ideas, my feelings, and my observations, and I'm not afraid of doing that. And if we just look at the top one there, one of the things we looked into was the leaders, safety leadership. And as you will see, leaders' ability to give clear direction on safety. That was one of the questions we addressed. So when you look at it from 18, 19, and 20, there's been a movement. At the beginning, the leaders were unaligned. They did not have the same focus, and they went about safety leadership in different ways. And of course, what happens among the crew is that they get confused. One day you tell me to do this, the next day you're telling me to do it differently. But the leaders didn't know, and they were not aware of this because they've never sat down and talked about it because they just went about it in their own way. So if you start directing crews, leaders' attention to the influencing factors, then you have a starting point for a dialogue. But the dialogue doesn't happen unless you have leaders who can create the environment, as I said. This is where the soft skills come into the picture, because they need to try and ask the right questions. They need to try and get crew who are quiet to speak up. They need to start discussing how can we learn and create environments where crew feel that, yes, I now understand how I can do that. And when you slowly start working on these things, and for this company, we did a lot of safety leadership training, we did soft skills training, we did a lot of follow-ups, we start talking about things. If you can slowly develop this environment, you will see a movement in a positive direction of the factors that influence safety performance. And as you can see on the right side, over 6 years, there's been a 42% reduction in LTAs at this company in average. So we're not talking about 1 month to the other. No, it's an average of 42% reduction over 6 years, simply because we created an environment where leaders felt where the crew felt that they could actually speak up and give their opinion. And at the end of the day, we need opinions, we need reflections, we need thoughts, we need what's going on around the corner that you can't see as a leader, and you feel that they come back and tell you this is what is going on. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say, and very much echoing everything that Dave and Carol has said, when you get people to feel comfortable, when you create high psychological safety, where leaders understand how to create it, then you see a movement in performance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. Really interesting and insightful what you've offered us there. In the interest of time, we're going to move on, and may I invite Jo, last but not least, to take the floor.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Carol, for the invitation to be a panelist, and thank you to all the panelists. What great presentations. I've learned so much. So I'm sorry, I'm not a confident public speaker, and I'm quite nervous, so excuse me if I use my notes a lot. But I'm going to talk about soft skills from a lived experience and human point of view. The first time I remember someone actually mentioning the importance of what are soft skills was actually my dad about 30 years ago, and I'm now 55. I'd worked at UNESCO in Paris for a couple of years and then gone traveling. And when I got to London, I wanted to live here but had no idea what job to do. I ended up temping in a small international merchant bank, and after a few months, a job came up as an assistant to a commodity trade finance manager. I liked the idea of the job, but didn't think I had the skills I needed. It was actually my dad who convinced me to apply, encouraging me that I had a lot of the necessary skills. He told me that unless you're going to be a doctor, an engineer, a physicist, most jobs with a good manager and or mentor and the right soft skills can be done by a lot of different people. In my interview, I mentioned my lack of experience, but tried to reassure the panel I had the skills to do the job. Interested in people and a good communicator, strong work ethic, an independent thinker but enjoyed working as a team, enthusiastic to learn new things, flexible, a can-do attitude, and honest. Lucky for me, I was actually offered the job. I was thrown in at the deep end, but thrived and learned and contributed to my team, working with so many different people within and outside the organization, dealing with clients, lawyers, our credit committee, and other teams within the bank. After 20 years or so, when my second son was born, I stopped work for a few years and became a full-time mum, which meant I needed a whole new set of soft skills. Naturally, when I went back to work, I'd lost my confidence and thought I'd lost all the skills I needed to work. But a good friend sat me down and asked me what my day-to-day life was. We laughed as I told her a typical day was just about various nursery and school drop-offs, afternoon and evening activities, tantrums, fights, negotiation, exhaustion, reassurance, cooking and cleaning. She was like, okay, so wow, so now you don't just have the skills from the various jobs you've done, but you're also brilliant at multitasking, empathy, conflict resolution, resilience, time management, and calm in a crisis. What organization wouldn't love to have you as part of their team? She helped me incorporate my work and home life skills, and I began to feel ready to enter the workplace again. Many of us have probably worked for or alongside colleagues who are very academically and or technically able, but don't have great soft skills, emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, time management, empathy, etc. Ideally, a mix of both is good, but I think societally we focus on the academic and technical skills too much for a lot of jobs, instead of the important soft skills, but I think organizations and ship owners are realizing the importance of both. Apparently, the shipping industry currently has a shortage of about 90,000 mariners. It definitely seems that the industry recognizes that shipping companies are competing for crew with the necessary skills and talents they need against other shore-based organizations within and outside the maritime sector, which means they need to find ways to encourage people to look for a career at sea, ensuring that crew feel valued, safe on board, and respected. The industry definitely seems to be trying to tackle this shortfall and is beginning to recognize the importance of soft skills and leadership, especially for captains, ship officers, senior officers who set the culture on board and are the people responsible for looking out for their crew, recognizing issues and understanding what needs to be put in place to make the ship inclusive, safe, efficient, and a rewarding place to work. A colleague mentioned to me their conversation with a captain who told them that they had spent 90% of their training to be a captain, focusing on 10% of their actual role, which was how to run a bridge. But in fact, 90% of their role as a captain was how to run a team at sea. Another colleague talked about a brilliant captain he'd worked with on a vessel which had combined messing, so everyone ate together. And the captain made a point of sitting with a different table at each meal. It meant he was approachable and the crew felt seen and valued. And as you can imagine, it was a happy ship to work on. Although this colleague was no longer in touch with the captain, he'd never forgotten him. It's hard making sure you select the right people for these senior jobs, who have the right technical skills to handle a ship, industry skills, as well as people management skills. But we all know when you get it right and crew feel seen, valued, challenged, and included, you have a happy ship and a crew who want to sail with you again. I'm lucky to work in an organisation that puts an emphasis on soft skills alongside academic and technical skills, knowledge of the sector, and different lived experiences. We're encouraged to collaborate together, to challenge each other, and see things from different people's perspectives, which I think makes the charity a fantastic place to work. I think because of this, we're an innovative, forward-thinking, open, and inclusive place to work, where we all have a voice, no matter which department or level. Our chief exec is one of the most approachable CEOs I've met. She has an incredible work ethic, is gracious, has an open door policy, always giving people the opportunity to share ideas and encouraging us all to brainstorm together. Always thinking of ways to collaborate with other organisations and charities and introduce people, and thinking of how to make our charity more inclusive and a happy place to work. In essence, a fantastic leader with great soft skills as well. Our leadership team have also always seen the importance of equity, diversity, and inclusion. This isn't a tick box for our charity, it's embedded into the culture. We share a short EDI-related video at every monthly staff meeting. We have an active staff-led EDI team who organise monthly lunch and learns. We do regular thought-provoking training and activities. And I think this has really helped the staff team bond, engage, and think outside of their own experiences. We are far more culturally and self-aware, individually as well as a charity. Our eyes have been open to so many different people's lived experiences, and our lunch and learns give us an opportunity to discuss things together, reflect on our biases, and just enjoy time at work, but not working for an hour a month, which we might not otherwise have the opportunity to do. Although it's hard to have tangible evidence, I feel as a charity we're more innovative and productive because we feel happy, valued, and challenged at work. I'd like to finish my talk with one of my favourite quotes by the beautiful Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you do, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Joe. What a really powerful quote to finish on there. And I think thank all the speakers for really warming us to our theme today. I think you've done a fantastic job, and I can see from the question panel from our audience that you've inspired them to really take an interest and prod us a bit more with some of your thoughts. Just mindful of time, we've got under 10 minutes left, so we must really move at pace getting through these questions, but I do want to get through some. So I would just ask the speakers to be brief in their answers, so we can cover 5 or 6. I'll waste no time. First one that's coming in here is that, you know, soft skills have been part of a mariner's skill set since ships first went to sea. So why is it important to shine a spotlight on soft skills now? Why do we need a handbook? You know, has the value or contribution of soft skills changed? Perhaps, Carol, you might take that one.
Excellent question. And I'm kind of interested in the beginning of it, saying, you know, soft skills have been part of the, you know, mariner's, professional life. But they may have been, but I think now we're at a point where there is a greater understanding of their importance, their impact, and their value, and also the consequences to the lived experience of crew if they are not in evidence, and also our greater appreciation of psychological well-being, of mental health, of the factors which contribute to motivated workforces. I think, you know, that understanding and appreciation of that and the consequences to safety and retention and you know, just the commercial bottom line. So I think that's what's changed. Although I would also argue that we don't see enough of their implementation. As I talked about, the next book I'm working on is about toxic workplaces and the human cost of that, and also the notion of allyship and the need for more upstanders, so people who will call out bullying and harassment and poor working practices and leadership. And I do feel that we remain in still quite dark times, which is why this is really important.
Indeed. Joe, thank you, Carol. Joe, can I come to you? There's a really nice question here that I think that you might be ideally to answer. The question is, there are leaders out there who want their teams to feel happy and safe and well treated in the workplace, but then occasionally a more difficult conversation is needed, perhaps around performance or punctuality or something like that. Is there a tension, do you think, between treating people well and holding them to account in the workplace?
I mean, I think, you know, I think one of the most important things is good communication skills, being an active listener and being able to communicate with people at all levels. And I think, you know, making people feel that they are responsible for being the best version of themselves. So I think that being able to constructively criticize someone or give someone advice about timekeeping or management and why, try to understand why they might not be on time as much, or, you know, but then kind of say, you know, really, you know, we're in a charity, we all count on each other, or we're on a vessel, you know. Timekeeping, I think, is important. So I think it's a lot of it is just down to communication, but I think you don't need to be strong or soft to be a good leader. You need to be approachable, but I think you also, you know, all of us need to be responsible for our own actions, and when we're not, I think we do need to be held to account.
Thank you for that, Joe. Go ahead.
Can I come in very briefly and, you know, absolutely endorse everything Joe has said, and certainly on the soft skills courses we role play and rehearse and discuss those very scenarios when you do have to have a difficult conversation, and actually that conversation might be with your manager, it might be with a peer, you know, it might be with someone who you are line managing, but how to have those robust conversations where you do hold people to account, because if you don't, the consequences are quite dire, and what it signals to the rest of the crew if you are not having those conversations can be catastrophic.
Absolutely. Thank you also for that, Carol. We've got only a few minutes left. I'm desperate to get 3 more questions in, if I may, and we'll move on to the next one now. At sea, it's not uncommon for people from many different backgrounds, countries, cultures to live and to work together on board, sometimes for months and months at a time. So to what extent do you think soft skills are culturally determined? Is it possible for people from diverse backgrounds to sort of be aligned in their values and their social skills, Carol?
Yeah, so this is one of the myths that I alluded to, and that's not to denigrate the question in any way, because I think it's a good question, but it goes back to the dialogue, sometimes the uncomfortable conversations and the importance of finding those shared values and common grounds. So if we kind of go back to what, are purported to be soft skills about, the active listening, the being aware of our own biases and prejudices, about being an upstander when it comes to making inappropriate comments. I think it's all of those things, but I think it is going beyond the superficial and actually be prepared to, talk as a team about what is the common ground, what are we all for.
Dave?
Yeah, very briefly, some of the best voyages I've ever had were multinational crews, up to 9 different nationalities. And as a kind leader, if you go down and you meet with the crew and you listen to the crew, more importantly, and the officers, and that very quickly establishes a very trustworthy bond on board a ship, and that will pay dividends. So having multinational crews, actually, I found I learned so much more about other people's cultures, and I thought it was just a big win-win all the way.
Sure. Eric, I'm going to come to you because this reflects some of the questions that have come in from the audience. You're in the business of soft skill development, and that's what your organization does. How or when would we know that soft skill development training is working? What are the sort of markers or signs that you would look for if you're in charge of training? How do we know that what's taught in a classroom or in training follows people back into the workplace and makes a difference?
That's a good question. I think, first of all, just reflecting on what has already been said, I think when you talk about soft skills, it's about developing soft skills, and we can always develop them to become better. We're not perfect in all ways. And I think when we do training, we offer methods and structure. So you could say we try to, if we're talking about feedback, for instance, we try to help those giving a feedback feel more comfortable doing it, but at the same time also having a structure in it that makes people understand what you're trying to say. I think, when does it work? Well, ask the crew, really. I mean, when what I showed you just before, you start asking for their perceptions of what is happening. So if you're talking about your leaders in a company, you can do a leadership engagement survey, or just ask the crew via interviews to say, how do you feel that there's been any change? Do you see any movement? And my experience is that when you work with these things, when you focus on it, you will feel an experience. And we even had once, we were doing a long program for a company where we went on board to do an effect discussion. So how do you feel it on board? And some of my colleagues were sailing, and there was a pilot on board. And he came up to my colleagues, say, listen, this company is different. When I come on board, I can feel there's an open and trusting environment. I don't know what they've done, but this company, when I go piloting with it, I can feel the difference. So for me, the effect is just, sit down and ask the question, do you feel any effect? Because if you look at soft skills and you apply or use methods, you provide some structure that helps you do it in a more constructive and effective way.
Thank you. Very mindful of time and very mindful that we've got a message from Marquita before we close down. But I would like the last word to Dave to just quickly say, where does senior leadership come in? Where does the board come in setting the soft skills agenda? Is this just a sea issue, a seagoing ship's crew problem? Where does the board and senior leadership ashore feature in this discussion?
It features right at the top. So if to start implementing soft skills training throughout your organization, take it to the board of directors, set the tone and the direction from there. And once everyone knows that the board are on side, all senior management within ship management, HR, everything, that's the direction to go. The crew will pick up on that very, very quickly, and that will really inspire the crew. And going back to my earlier points in my presentation, they will want to stay with a company that they see that there's this really proactive approach. It is a real return on your investment, and that's where it starts. It starts at the top.
Thank you, Dave. That's a really nice thought to leave on, that leadership starts at the top. Marquita, we're hit 11 o'clock. You get the final message.
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you all to all our speakers, Joe, Eric, Dave, and of course our author Carol. Your presentations today demonstrated how necessary soft skills are to all of us. And we thank you for delivering such a very insightful and informative webinar today. This webinar marks the official launch of Developing Soft Skills in Mariners. And as such, we'd like to offer a very special promotional discount of 40% to everyone in attendance today. To our members, your exclusive New Year offer applies to this title as well, so please do take advantage of this. You'll see on the screen we have a QR code which you can log into, but this slide will be sent to you in our handouts. So don't worry if you didn't capture it here, you'll have the information to download any handouts, and we can send this to you otherwise as well. So in closing, I'd like to encourage you to visit our website to learn more about our membership and how you can join. We have 60 branches worldwide. And our next webinar scheduled for the Information and Publications Department will be on ship handling. So stay tuned to that. And we hope to present this to you in March. As soon as we confirm the date, we will of course send you more information, and you can also keep in touch with us and also visit our website under our events page, where you'll find information about all our upcoming webinars and events at the Nautical Institute. Thank you so very much, and have a lovely day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Marquita and Stephen and everyone. Bye.
Take care. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.